Okay, guys. So, what we're going to discuss today is advertising and estimating jobs. What jobs may be worth your time to bid, what jobs maybe aren't worth your time, and we'll get into that a little bit, and I'll talk about my own personal experiences. So, as you guys obviously know, we're dealing with a little bit of a hiccup in the economy with this whole coronavirus pandemic that's been going on. It's really taken a hit on the stock market. It's really been, causing havoc within our industry, as well as people are now afraid to spend money. They don't know what's going to happen next. So I just wanted to dive into a little bit about advertising because we're getting into the spring, getting into that time of year, and estimating jobs. I estimated a job yesterday that I've already estimated 2 times previous. And the guy, he just really is wasting my time, whether he's doing it on purpose or he believes the job will be cheaper now. I don't know. But you're always going to get those kinds of people. So the first thing I want to talk about is where to advertise, especially when you're starting out. So if you're starting out and you don't have a lot of money, that's probably where you're coming from. Where do you start going? So the first thing is, obviously going out to job sites. Like new construction or alterations, if you want to get into that line of work, that's pretty easy. You drive around, hand out a business card, hey, give me a chance. Some people will, some people won't. It's kind of the luck of the draw. If you're looking to get into homeowner work, flyers are great. Put them in mailboxes, put business cards in mailboxes. Personally, myself, I think flyers are better. You don't have to have them professionally made anymore. You can make them at home on your computer. You could put some pictures of jobs that you've done, and put your contact information on an 8x11 piece of paper, print out a bunch of them, stick them in people's mailboxes. It's cheap, free advertising. It doesn't really take much to do anymore, whereas maybe years ago, like when I started, you had to go someplace to have them professionally made, or you were kind of limited in what you could do with a computer. At least I was. So that's another road that you can go down. As far as, these places that they want to charge you for leads, or, you advertise. I started out advertising on Yellow Book and Google. Google is a good place to go. They're free listings. I think you can pay Google for a premium listing, I believe they used to call it. I paid. It wasn't that expensive, and you get on the list, the first page of listings, which worked out okay. I didn't get too many leads from there. The major place that I went to for advertising was Yellow Book. I thought, Yellow Pages, I knew them from when I was a kid, so that's really where I started going. And at the time, Yellow Book had a pretty big following. They were still printing, phone books and all that stuff. So I went to Yellow Book first. It was about $3,500 to $4,000 a year. It was basically a flat fee. You got on their website, you got on search engines, you were in the book, you took out a certain section out of the page, and you were able to do up to 5 different categories of what you wanted to be in. I think they put me in concrete, they put me in construction, they put me in asphalt paving, and maybe a couple of others I don't recall. So, and the thing was, it generated a lot of phone calls, right? So I was doing anywhere from 20 to 40 estimates a week, okay? Which isn't that bad on Staten Island when you think about it in my area. I had a few calls for Brooklyn. I did look at a few jobs. I never got them. Brooklyn is just, it's a little tougher for me to do, obviously going over the bridge, and just, the logistics of me executing the job in Brooklyn are a lot tougher. So for me, staying local was the way to go. But the problem is with this advertising thing is, you get phone calls, but are you closing the jobs? Are they good leads? So, like, I think there's Home Advisor that's out there. A lot of people ask about that, or Angie's List, or all these other places, or these other companies that charge you per lead. A lot of them could be dead ends, and you could be paying for that. So the thing that I liked about Yellow Book was it was a flat fee, and you were there. You could see your advertising. So the thing was with Yellow Book, I was doing all these estimates, but I really wasn't closing these jobs. Now, I would get maybe out of these 40 estimates a week, we would do about 5 of them. And the other problem was another 5 jobs would get somebody else, and maybe another 30 did not do anything at all. So the thing is, they were bad leads in my opinion. They were people just, poking the stick around, trying to see what was there. And if you're paying per lead with these companies, if you get 10 of those, I mean, it could really be a financial burden to you after a while if you can't close these deals or if these people are just poking around with a stick. So that's another thing, you got to be careful with that. My suggestion would be, I got quite a few jobs through Craigslist. I know at the time it was free to advertise. I don't know how they work it now. There may be a small fee that they charge, but anywhere where you could go free, like if you could advertise free on Google, do it, excuse me. If you're able, Facebook Marketplace I think is the next up and coming advertising place to be. I would definitely check into that. I might even put up an ad on Facebook Marketplace, to be honest with you, because you got nothing to lose really. If it's free, you get a few phone calls out of it, you might have a chance to close a job. Maybe. So that's where I would start. So my main thing with Yellow Book was after a few years of advertising with them, and I started breaking down the jobs I was getting versus the cost of keeping these ads going. And when I called my representative at Yellow Book, because they actually had put someone in charge of my account, and I was talking to the agent, and I was coming up to re-up my 1-year subscription because they did it yearly. And I was talking to the guy, and I said, listen, I mean, I'm just not getting enough jobs, profit, for what you're charging me. I said, maybe you could charge me less. He said, well, I can't do that. I'm looking at your records, you're getting, and he knew how many calls I got, and if I answered the phone or not, and or if I was calling people back, because what they did was they linked a telephone number to my cell phone number. So I had like an 888 number on the advertising that was linked to my cell phone. So they were able to see all of this. And I said, well, yeah, you're getting the calls, I'm answering the phone, I'm calling people back, but I'm not getting anywhere with these leads. So to me, I said, I just want to let my account go. If you're not willing to do anything for me, if you're just looking at how many phone calls I'm getting and not looking at the real jobs in the end, then there's nothing I could do. I said I could actually tell you on one hand how many jobs I ended up doing with the advertising. So it really wasn't worth a few $1,000s a year that it was costing me. So I ended up, word of mouth. Like I said, if I do flyers or hand out business cards, I do that occasionally. But, word of mouth has really kept me in business all these years. To be honest with you, that's the best way of advertising. So that's what I recommend. And as far as, when you estimate a job, you can almost tell when a person is serious about doing it or when they're just BSing. So this guy in particular, he reached out to me, came to the yard. He said, can you come and take a look at this project? What he wants to do is he wants to do a small footing around the perimeter and do a slab on top and frame a garage. So the scope of the job is very large because you have to cut down the grade. The grade goes like this to his small existing garage, and the dirt is higher than the siding on the garage. So not only is he taking water from his yard in this garage, it's destroying the framing. The other thing is you have to cut it down all the way because it has to be level. So when you have a yard like this, you guys obviously know what you're talking about. You're taking out a lot of dirt. And the grade is already it's at least 4 to 6 inches above his siding from where it is. So you got to take all this dirt out. You got to take a bucket of dirt, walk it about 200 something feet to a dumpster in the front of the job. A dump truck will never wait that long, at least in my area. They want to be in and out 20, 30 minutes. So a dumpster would be the only way to do it. I mean, we're talking about pumping out about 200 yards of dirt, maybe 170 yards roughly, the 200 yards of dirt out. You're bringing stone in, you got to get the concrete in there, the wire mesh, the whole 9 yards that you got to do. You got to dig this trench all around the perimeter. I mean, we're talking, he's somewhere in the neighborhood of, 50 yards of concrete here with the slab and the footings around. So it's not something like I could walk it with a bobcat. You got to get a pump, and that costs money too. So, the whole thing is he's undermining his neighbor. You gotta brace the neighbor with concrete first, and you're gonna have to do some type of a wall around the perimeter because, you're cutting this bank down. You're gonna have a sheer cut of dirt here that he's not putting the wall back. He's gonna put framing. So I told him you gotta, brace the neighbor, yes, because the neighbor is higher than him, and then you gotta do something along the back, and then you could talk about doing the small footing and the slab. So, this job is coming out to be in the, I believe, my original estimates were somewhere in the $60,000-$70,000 range to execute everything. Because, we're talking about 2 weeks of work here with everything that has to be done. And I'm just giving you a ballpark number. So at first he said, no, that's way too much money. I'll do it myself with some friends on a Saturday. I said, okay, well, have a nice day. I'm doing a 5-house job for a builder up the street, the flat work. He comes over, he goes, hey, remember me from 2 years ago? I never got around to doing it. Can you reprice this job? Go there, I take the measurements again. The job really hasn't changed much in the scope except the fact that he's dug he's dug about 30 foot of trench along the neighbor, which has made the undermining situation even worse than it was when I first looked at it. And he said, I have no time for this, reprice it. I gave him a price. He never gets back. I said, okay, this guy, whatever, he got somebody else cheaper than at this point. Flash forward now, I think it's another 2-3 years later, he comes to the yard again, my father gives him my number, he calls me, I'm like, again, I go there yesterday, it looks exactly the same as when I left it, except the garage is now falling down, basically, and the neighbor's side yard is getting totally undermined at this point, and it's just like, what do you want from me? I said, I'm going to rework an estimate for him again, to work out a number. I said, he's thinking this job is worth around $8,000, and the thing is, if we're hauling out 10 dumpsters of dirt, at the very least, that's $10,000 right there, plus the machine, plus the time, the start, and we're not even getting in there, the labor and anything else that we're going to get into. So the thing is, if he's thinking this is a few $1,000 job that's going to be knocked out in 2-3 days, he obviously doesn't understand the scope of the job. I don't know if other people are bidding it as well, and he's just trying to poke around. But my point is that a guy like this, if he puts this job up at Home Advisor or a contractor place where you pay for these leads, this is the type of person that will cost you money for nothing. And he's, for me, he's just wasting my time. The, half hour it takes me to figure this crap out. At least he's not taking money out of my pocket, really. But, was there a comment? I couldn't tell, sorry. So, the whole thing is that, whatever, I'll give him one more price. If I hear from him in another 3 years, this could be like, this is totally a waste of time. So my thing is, and you could tell off the bat, if people are going to do the job or not. I'm sorry. There you go. Yeah, so you're 100% right. Time is money. So, taking that half hour of time, you're 100% right. But, for me, just to give him a price to get him off my back so he doesn't call me 10 times a day, it's worth it in the end. So, like I said, I'll give him a price, and that'll be it. If I hear from him again, forget it. 3 strikes and you're out, right? That's baseball. So, the other, hold on. There you go. So, see, I'm sorry, I need my glasses. Writing is so small. And, so the other thing is, like, you could tell off the bat if somebody is serious or not. That's why I like builders. I like working for builders. I know there's a huge stigma against them. They don't like to pay. They beat you out of money. They make you do a cheap job. I'm going to tell you why I like working for builders. Because builders basically need you. When they call you, they're kind of serious about using you, especially if it's a recommendation from somebody else. And you're at least bidding against other people who kind of know the market. Like builder guys, the prices are basically all the same. You got a couple of jerk-offs who undercut you because they don't have insurance, but builders really can't use them because they need to prove up their books at the end of the year with certificates of insurance. So that moron that's running around, scrambling, working for nothing, he's not going to last too long. You got to deal with him for a little bit. But once he can't provide a certificate of insurance, the builder's going to get rid of him. So my point is that for me, it's kind of a little bit of a more level playing field than if you're dealing with a homeowner, because they could really get anybody. And if they don't have insurance, as long as nothing goes wrong, that's perfectly fine. I can tell you, I look at least 20 jobs a year where a guy with no insurance, no license, started the job, way in over his head, and now the people are in a mess. Some of the jobs I do get, and we fix everything. Some of the jobs I don't get, other people get it. You're not going to get every job. And that's another thing I want to tell you is, if you're bidding jobs and you're not getting every one of them, that's a good thing too. Because that means that your pricing is fair. It's where it needs to be. You don't want to be super duper high where, very few people are going to use you. You don't want to be super cheap, because then you're leaving money on the table. I like to try to be right in the middle. You do a very good job for the price that you get. I don't want to be in this class. I certainly don't want to be in this class. We do a very good job. I'm not going to tell you that we do colored concrete, stamped concrete. We don't do any of that. We do basic concrete. We give you a broom finish. We give you an edge. That's what you get. If you want to spring for the sealer, we'll do it. If you don't want to, then we don't do it. I recommend it, but a lot of people don't want to go for that extra money for the sealer. They'd rather just roll the dice. So that's fine with me as well. But that's the difference with builders and homeowners. Basically, it's a little different with the builders than it is with the homeowners. But, like I said, once you get into bidding more, you'll be able to realize, who's serious and who's not. And you could tell off the bat. I could tell this guy is not going to do the job this time. So, anyway. But, 1 second. Oh, job minimum, out the door. I actually just looked at a job for a guy who's a recurring customer. And, I would say the bare minimum for me to bring a crew, bring a machine, and do a job is at least around $1,500 to $2,000. Because you bring 2 to 3 men to a job, you got to pay their taxes. You got to pay into the medical or whatever they have. You've got a truck. You've got fuel. You've got a machine that's riding on a trailer. So this guy's job minimum actually was about $1,900. So, but I would not go out for a job for anything less than $1,500 because it's just too expensive for me to leave the yard. And one guy, he needed me to replace like 2 or 3 flags of concrete, and it was about, $1,500. He said, well, why can someone else do it for like $500? I said, well, maybe they have no overhead. I said, but you have to understand that for me to leave my yard in the morning, you need to make a certain amount of money because it is what it is. And for a guy like me who has a medium-sized crew, yeah, maybe the other crew is doing something else on another job, but you're taking at least 2 of my men that could be doing something else. I can't, charge you and make $100 just because you need 3 flags of concrete. So I had that issue with a couple of people as well. They said, well, this guy, whoever he was, he said, well, I could do this job for $800. I said, well, the cost of the job with 2 laborers is, somewhere in the neighborhood of $600-700. So if this guy has no overhead and he makes $100, then he made some money, right? He made $200 or whatever, and he didn't really do much of anything. So, there's a big difference between when you have operating expenses versus when you're just doing it as a, what do they call it, a weekend warrior, or, something like that. So obviously, know your worth of what you're doing. Obviously, if you're a guy going out and mulching, like around a tree, you can't say, let's just say you can't say $1,500 because, what would it really cost? What is your monthly overhead? My renewals are coming in for the insurance, and they went up Oh, God. I mean, off the top of my head, my workman's comp bill was around 40,000 for last year, I think, or 35. General liability is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10, 9 or 10, something like that. The auto was around 15 for the year. And as far as the taxes, they vary, the hours the men work. I really couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But, when I figure out the expenses, how much, I break it down per week. So now that we're getting into the new season, or my renewals are coming in, now I'll rework that number. But there's a certain number that you cannot go below per week, otherwise you're losing money. So I know where my break even is. I'm sorry, I just don't know off the top of my head. But like, you got to break it down. Like, okay, my insurance is X for this year. My fuel will roughly be X for this year. That's a bit of a variable because the prices fluctuate. But you know how many gallons you used of fuel, and you could roughly figure it. So that's what I like to do. I like to get it to it per week. You have the men out. They work a 40-hour work week. That costs me X, right? The insurance, I'll just take that bulk number of the workman's comp, general liability, and auto. I'll take whatever number that is, divide that into 52 weeks a year. Boom, there you go. That's that. And as far as the taxes go, you get the rate. You figure it out for a 40-hour work week. Of course, the hours vary. We work outside. So, whatever that number is X, boom, put it into it per week. And then you figure out, how much and your salary per week. And then that's how you get it. But like I said, I'll try to figure it out. Like I said, my renewals are coming in now. Because when I started my business, this particular business, Coast Concrete, all my renewals come in April. So I'm just starting to get the packages now. Because they give you about 30 days to pay, and I pay at the end of April. So that's why I don't have that new figure. But I know my GL went up, I think 10%. They sent me a letter, I think I went up 10%, because they have to let you know when they're raising you. Workman's comp, I don't believe the number changed. It's the same. Nice if, like the workman's comp that we have here in New York, in my area, they charge you per payroll, like per $100. So they charge you a number, I forget exactly what it is. They charge you a number times per $100 of payroll that you have. For your men, I'm excluded. Because I have employees. So then they charge you that per year. So you just got to figure out roughly what the 40-hour work week would cost per $100 of capital. So that's how they figure it out. Other insurance companies may do different. I really don't know off the top of my head. So other than that, guys, I hope this video has helped you out a little bit. Like I said, try to stick to free advertising. Try to do it from home. If you can, print out flyers. Try to keep that cost low, because that's like an extra cost that you really, could do without, especially when you're starting. You got enough headaches to worry about when you're getting going. So I hope this video has helped you out. Questions, comments, please leave them down below. I'm always happy to try to help if possible. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It means a lot to me. As for now, please be safe, take care, and guys, please, stay healthy, stay well. With this whole coronavirus thing going on, even if you don't have elderly parents or elderly family members or friends, try to remember that you could pass it off to someone who does, and that could be the unfortunate end for them. So I hope everyone is taking the right precautions. Guys, I will talk to you soon.